You mentioned your first sales letter made $287,000. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
would be interested in that. Can you go over what happened there?
Well, that was actually so, my first business was in the fashion and music business. And then after that, I took like about a year and a half off, 2 years off, kind of semi-retired. Not that I had made all the money I was planning on making. I was in my 20s, but I had made enough so that I could take time off and figure out what was next. And I then read an article in Time Out magazine, and in Time Out magazine, there was an article about a hypnotist in New York. That's where I used to live, in New York City. And so I was curious, never been hypnotized before. And so I decided to make an appointment, got hypnotized, and turns out I'm highly hypnotizable. So it was pretty profound for me. And then I started studying hypnosis, and then very quickly decided that that was going to be my next business. So I opened up a hypnosis center in Manhattan that grew to a chain of hypnosis centers ultimately. But that was what really kind of turned me on to direct response advertising, because back in the fashion and music business, it was much more slick and much more image style than it was direct response. And so in the hypnosis business,
Can you explain to the
it,
audience real quick what you mean by direct response?
advertising that is designed to elicit a response, like right then and there,
Push
as
a
opposed,
button, swipe up, something like that.
or make a phone call
Yeah.
or do something, right? As opposed to just like reminding people that your brand exists and that you exist, right? And so I was very familiar with the latter, but not so much the former, until I got into the business of the hypnosis business, where we were running ads and we were trying to get the phone to ring. And what I found was is that the more I liked the ad, the worse it did. The cheesier the ad, the better it did.
Isn't
The
that funny?
more,
Isn't that
yeah,
funny how that works? Because I'm finding the exact same thing. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's what really turned me on to direct response. And so while I had my hypnosis centers, because within a period of like 4 years, we grew from like zero to about 13.5 million. We had 60 full-time hypnotists on staff. I ended up hiring a lot of the direct response legends, you could call them, like people like Gary Halpert and Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy. And then after 9/11, my hypnosis business kind of took a hit. And I decided that I wanted to get out of the hypnosis business and potentially go online, because I had now kind of gotten the direct response bug, and the best place for direct response is online, because pretty much it's, most of the advertising you see online is direct response. And so when I was leaving the hypnosis world, I decided that I would sell to other hypnosis centers everything that I had learned over the 4 years of building the most successful hypnosis business that ever existed. And so I went to a copywriting seminar by Dan Kennedy, and that was interesting to me because of all the advertising that we were doing at the hypnosis centers. And in at that event, I met John Carlton, and bought his course. Later on, became friends with him, et cetera. But during that time, I read his course and used his course to help me write my very first sales letter. And my very first sales letter was for this $10,000 information product on all the secrets that I had learned, that had helped me go from zero to 13.5 million in my hypnosis centers over a 4-year period of time. There were only 35 hypnosis centers in the world at that time. I sent each of them a FedEx of the sales letter and gave them 1 week to respond, and we sold 28 of the 35. So that was my very first experience in writing a sales letter.
Nice. What do you think? Were you ahead of your time? Was there something specific? What can people take from this? Because I know a lot of copywriters watch this. What is something that you can people can take? What was the reason why that one did so well?
Well, it did really well because the people that received the letter knew that I was the most successful person in hypnosis. So,
Ah,
anyone can kind of think about, like, if the most successful person in your industry decides to leave the industry and is going to like create a set of like manuals, instructions, et cetera, of everything that they learned over that period of time to let them be the most successful. Um, that's kind of what it was. The, you know, I was very happy, obviously, that I sold like, 87% of the people or whatever the number would be. But what I would say now, as someone much older and wiser, is that all that tells me is that I didn't charge enough. That I
Right.
probably been much more expensive, because you don't really want an 87% conversion rate. But it was much more the dynamics of what my rep was and what I had achieved in that industry. It was a good sales letter too, I think. It was kind of hyperbolic, but it was much more who I was than what the letter was, if that makes sense.
What year was this? And then how were you distributing the letter? Is this all just email blasts? Like, what were you doing back then?
No, no, no. This was in 2001, and it was sent by FedEx. So it's like a 35-page
Oh, we're talking
sales letter.
IRL, like an actual letter. Okay. I didn't understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. And the return reply was a FedEx, or they could fax back the order page. And I wasn't going to create it unless I got enough orders, and I only got one order the first 6 days, and on the seventh day, I got 27 more people faxing me back orders.